Head Marshal's Office Dispatch. This is Lainey.
Hey, this is George Hardelmeyer. I'm at George's Ski Shop in Bryan Head.
Hi.
I am now driving my shuttle van up Parowan Canyon. Right below the S-turn, there is a cabin, and the cabin owner has a fire going. He's burning off shrub around his cabin. The fire is massive.
Okay.
I think a Bryan Head officer needs to go to this cabin immediately and talk to this landowner before he burns down Bryan Head.
Oh my goodness, that was a fascinating fire. It did begin with a fellow that was doing, we like to say, the right thing at the wrong time on his private property north of Bryan Head town, downslope from the town. He was trying to get rid of fuels, but he was burning at a wrong time. The first few days of that fire, the first couple of days particularly, it was a huge threat to Bryan Head town. And the response to that fire was outstanding locally to protect Bryan Head. And there was real hope that firefighters, through initial attack, interagency, had been able to get a handle on that fire and were doing the last remaining actions necessary to begin containment. But then weather struck, and we can't control the weather. And it was the winds and the erratic nature of that weather that really set this fire off to have it become the beast that it became. Once that fire took off and it was wind-driven and made the runs that it did at the elevation it did early in the season, when there was still snow on the ground, firefighters in that part of the state have told me they've never seen fire behavior like that at that elevation. It made runs unlike has ever been seen before in southern Utah. With winds that were as strong, as extreme as these were on the Bryan Head fire those first number of days, there's often not a lot, frankly, that can be done in terms of fighting a wildfire. You sometimes have to step back and allow it to do its thing and keep people safe. Aviation resources, retardant, water drop from the air, that doesn't stop a fire. That doesn't put a fire out. What we hope it does is it slows it down, maybe brings it out of the treetops and allows firefighters on the ground to be able to engage it. And it's firefighters that ultimately can put that fire out. But fuel and weather has to change. Fires are getting larger, they're getting more destructive, they're becoming more costly and more dangerous. There are more people out on the ground in all sorts of locations where it can be more difficult to access a fire in initial attack and get it stopped while it's small. The conditions are getting worse across the West as we struggle with active forest management and forests become overgrown, decadent. We see bug kill and the challenges that come from that when it's related to fire. So fires definitely are getting worse, but we are having more of them. In regards to these larger fires that we've been having these last couple of years, the Bryan Head fire, now the Dollar Ridge fire, we cannot become complacent in Utah and accepting of simply having bigger and worse and more destructive fires. We are losing dozens of homes, and that's not acceptable. We know how to get ahead of this issue. It takes a ton of commitment and it will take money, but we're going to spend that money on suppression if we don't spend it on the mitigation and preparedness work. We have to keep working hard at this. We cannot become accepting of these types of damaging and dangerous fires.